That was a good comeback though. He was on me like two nil, 2-0 to one. That's crazy, man.
Your call has been forwarded.
If you are smart, you know that they let you score. If you are smart, if you're not, if you're smart, you know that they let you score. But if you're not, you think that, oh yeah, it's cool, it's all cool. he know, he knows. I think he knows. That's why he's trying to delay. He knows I let him score because I mean it was obvious that he could not score again.
Hey, babe.
What's up?
Hey, I was just calling you back. Sorry. I'm on the phone with your mom now.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah, yeah. Where are you guys?
Oh, we're at Publix.
Okay, no problem.
I have it.
Ah, what am I playing, bro? One blank save. Jesus Christ. Suppose I get left like this. Fucking hell. Nothing like an cement striker, bro. Nothing like an cement striker, my bro. Easily, how many hours do one typically go to in college?
To complete a college degree, one typically has to take 120 semester hours. These hours include general education, electives, and classes in one's major. Full-time students usually take 12 to 15 credits per semester and graduate within 4 to 6 years. This is from TechnosRoom.com and CitizensBank.com.
That is a service, a command, and I'm sorry, a service that lets you remote into, allows machines to remote into your machine. If I wanted to remote into another machine and run commands, that service must be running on that destination computer. Okay? Again, not talking really about the cloud here, but wanting to remote into another machine. So I could actually type git service dash, check this out, computer name, and then whatever the name of the other computer is. If the other computer is called client 68, I can hit enter right now. If there really was a computer called client 68 that's running WinRM, I could actually go into that machine and run and see the services that are running. Another thing you can do is you can actually type intro-ps session and the name of a computer name, and then client 68, for example, and I can load into that other machine and run commands directly from inside of it instead of just running one command at a time. Now, I'm not really getting into all that in this course because I'm sort of more focusing on teaching the fundamentals and then getting into the cloud and how we remote into the cloud. But I did want to clarify that's something you can do with your PowerShell. Okay, so that's one of the things that makes PowerShell so powerful is the fact that you can run lots of commands locally, but you can also very easily remote into another machine. Like I can say get process, for example. That's going to show the processes that are running on this computer right here. Okay, but I can also, if I wanted to, I could say get process dash computer name client. We'll say 10, comma client 11, comma client 12, comma whatever. I can see the services on all those machines. You know, another thing I can do with PowerShell is PowerShell supports something called piping. Piping is where you take the output from one command and you send it to the input of another command. So, for example, I could pipe using that little bar symbol. That's the symbol above your enter key with the slash. You hold down Shift and hit that backslash and create that character. Okay, and then if I wanted to, I could say out dash file. It's going to output it to a file. I could say C:/client processes, if I want. Okay, .text, right? And that would generate a file on the C drive called client processes. Okay, and it would actually generate from those three computers, and those three computers will allow me to root into those. Okay, so that's the idea of being able to take the output from one command and send it over to the input of another. I'll show you another example of this here coming up in a minute. All right. But PowerShell makes it very easy for us to do that. Another thing PowerShell does is it allows us to get help on things. For example, if I wanted to see, let's say I wanted to see the Windows event log, I could type git-event log. Okay, but the problem is maybe I don't know how to use the command correctly. So if I hit enter, for example, it tells me I'm missing a value. I need to specify a log name. I'm going to hit Control-C to escape out of that. Okay, you can type get help. All right, get help on that if you want. And if you type get help, I can say get help and then type get event log. Use the command correctly. So if I hit enter, for example, it tells me I'm missing a value. I need to specify a log name. I'm going to hit Control-C to escape out of that. Okay, you can type get help. All right, get help on that if you want. And if you type get help, I can say get help and then type get event log. And then it'll ask me if I want to download the latest help information from Microsoft. I'll say no to that. And it's going to show me a little bit about using the syntax of that. Okay, using the syntax of it. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not a huge fan of their help documentation built into PowerShell. What I love to do is to look the commands up using the browser. So let me jump into the browser and I'll show you really quickly how you can find the knowledge base article on this command. Okay, so just popping over here at Google, if you type that command, get-event log, and you just search that, you're going to find that there is a knowledge base article on just about every single PowerShell command. So I encourage you, anytime you work with PowerShell, check out search for the command in like Google or something like that, pop that up, and you'll see the very first link there shows you how to use this command. So it even gives examples, which I really love. So, like for example, get dash event log log name, show me the newest, 5 entries or whatever. It even gets in a little bit of scripting here, how to declare variables and all that. Great. They have some great examples there that will really help you. Okay. In fact, let's say we wanted to create a little script, and we'll do this in the ISE. We want to create a little script that is going to get the latest 5 entries of the security log on this Windows machine, and then I want to save it as a file, and I want to reformat it as a list instead of a table, and I'll show you the difference here too. So let's jump over into the ISE again. Okay, so right here in PowerShell, remember to get in ISE, you can just type ISE. It's going to open up the integrated scripting environment. And I want to show you how it kind of helps you when you're doing this sort of thing. So with the ISE, I can type get-event log, for example. And then if I space open and hit dash, notice that it shows me all the parameters. See how much easier this is if you're trying to write a script or something, you've got the parameters right here in front of you. All right, I'm going to do log name, and then here's one of my favorite things about it. It's space. It's going to show me the logs that are available. Okay, so not only does it detect the parameters, it detects the objects that the parameters associated with. In this case, it's the log. So I'm going to click on security, and then I'll hit space, and I'll say dash newest, and we'll say 10 entries. Okay. So from there, I can hit play, and it's going to show me the newest 10 entries. It's going to run the command down here to show it. The problem is the entries are so long, this table view that the get event log tries to show, it shows it in what's called a table view. It can't show it all. It can't put it in a format where I can see everything. So what I can do, I'm going to pipe that using that little bar symbol, and there's a command called format dash list. Okay, you can see all the format commands here too if you want. There are a bunch of options here. Format dash list if you want one. And then if I hit play, it's going to format it all as a list for me. Okay. And then if I wanted to pump this into a text file, I could say pipe again out dash file C colon, we'll just sort of my C drive, security log.txt. And it's now going to put it in a file in my C drive. So now I've got, if I go to my C drive, I can say dir star.txt. There it is right there. So I want to say notepad security log. It's going to open it up in notepad, and here is notepad. I can kind of use that at my convenience. Okay. So very helpful. So the other thing you can do here, with PowerShell, you can declare variables. Like I can create a variable called $ computer name equals client 10, and then I can throw a variable in here. I said $ computer name, and I can declare. Now that I've declared the variable up here, I can call upon that variable. This is just a very basic example of using variables in PowerShell. And if I want to run this whole thing, I can hit the play button using ISE, or if I just want to run one line at a time, I can hit this run selection button. Okay. So, declaring variables in PowerShell really easy. You just use $. If I, for example, I say $num equals 1, and I say $num b equals 2. I could say $num plus $num b, hit enter, and it's going to add those together. Here's your 3. Very basic example. You're declaring a variable, though, and then you can utilize those variables, especially when you're doing scripts. One more thing I want to mention about dealing with PowerShell. When you save a script, the script gets saved with a PS1 extension. The other thing is on the computer that you're running it on, you need to make sure that the computer supports. It hasn't been restricted from using scripts. So, for example, I type get dash, there's a thing called execution policy. And by default, Windows computers have a restricted execution policy. So if I run get execution on my computer, I've already set it to unrestricted, so it'll allow me to run scripts. But if you're sitting in a new Windows computer, a new Windows 10 computer, you'll need to type set dash execution policy, and then you can set it to the execution policy. You can set it to unrestricted. You have your different options here. Unrestricted is what I've got mine to, so I can run scripts on the machine. Okay. All right. Hopefully that gives you guys just a quick look and a quick foundation of PowerShell, and give you a little bit of an understanding of working with PowerShell and how it can really benefit you. We didn't really look at it from a cloud perspective here. We just looked at it from a local computer perspective. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding of utilizing PowerShell commands and how they're formed. I want to get into the concepts with Windows subscription activation. Now, you may be familiar with activation in the past. Windows has always, well, I shouldn't say always, but Windows, at least since Windows XP came out, has required that you activate it. So, going all the way back to 2002, 2003, that time period where Windows XP came out, we have had to activate Windows. Microsoft has been pretty hardcore on it. Now, as time has gone on, Microsoft has provided ways for activation to make things a little easier. So essentially what happened with activation is you install Windows, you purchase Windows, and you get what was called a product key, and Microsoft would require you to activate that product key, usually within about 30 days on the operating system. You'd have to enter the product key in, it would communicate with some servers on the internet, and would activate based on some serial numbers that are pulled from your computer based on the motherboard processor and all that. And that way you could just use that same product key on other devices. Okay, and that's how they handled that for years. And of course, the solutions they came out with this time went on. Microsoft came out with this thing called multiple activation key, an MAK, where you would have a single key that could be activated multiple times. And they also came up with a service called KMS, Key Management Services, which is a service you can install on a machine, and that machine would automate the process of activating machines in your environment. So you could have 1,000 Windows machines or whatever in your environment, and set up a KMS server, Key Management Services server, and that machine would activate all your machines in your computer. It would check in about every 7 days to make sure they're activated. If they lost connectivity with the KMS server for more than 180 days, it would lose their activation. And that's the way it was done. Now, fast forward to today, okay? It's the world we're living in now. First off, Microsoft is deprecating KMS. So they're not making it where you can't use it. They're just no longer going to add any new features to it. And they're not going to provide support for it. They're basically deprecating it. So you can still use it as of right now, but its days are numbered. Microsoft wants everybody to use the subscription service now, which is Windows subscription activation. The other good news is, for the most part, you can still use Windows even if it's not activated. It just doesn't let you use any of the personalization features of it. So, unlike the early days of Windows XP, where Windows XP would just not let you use it at all, in the latest versions of Windows, you can still use Windows, you just can't do the personalization features. But ultimately, if you want to personalize it, utilize Office and all that, you're going to need to activate it. And so Microsoft would prefer for you, or would like you to use your system. And that involves having their Microsoft cloud services an account in order to do that and have a license for it. So if you look here on the screen, I have got a document that outlines Windows subscription activation. Okay, you can find this exact same document, which is always going to have the latest and greatest information. You go to Google or Bing and just search these keywords right here. Windows subscription activation, you should be able to find this document, okay? And it'll contain the latest and greatest information. I always encourage people to look at the latest and greatest information, even though I constantly am trying to fight to update my videos. Microsoft changes things so quickly. It's like week after week after week, no matter how fast I update my videos, things are getting changed. So you can always see the latest and greatest here, and they tell you this is where you can see about activation. So if you have Windows, any of if you have like a Pro version of Windows, then you can upgrade to Enterprise to get access to all of the versions of all the features that Windows has to offer. Okay, Windows E3, Windows E5. I'm not going to get into the big difference right now. I'll just give it to you in a nutshell. E3, E5, big differences. That's with Windows Enterprise, Enterprise 3, Enterprise 5. Those are the two big subscriptions that they mentioned. And E3 essentially does not have as many security features as E5. So E5 gives you more security features than E3. You get a few other features, but again, I'm not going to get into all the depth on that right now. Okay. Just know that, of course, E3 is going to be a little cheaper than E5 a month. And you can always go to Google and just do a search for Windows Enterprise E3 versus E5, and you just want to know the differences right now. There's lots of stuff out there that will explain it to you and tell you about the cost and all that. So here's a quick glimpse of the cost, but this is not just looking at Windows E3 E5. This is going to sell you Microsoft E3 E5, which is not just Windows, but it comes with a lot of products. I'll look a little deeper into that in a moment. But ultimately, when it comes to subscription activation, this is for Windows Pro editions, okay? And you can see which versions are supported. Some of these are, if you got older versions, you would have to upgrade to a newer version before you would be able to support this. And they tell you as you get deeper into this right here, all right, what you can support. So basically, Windows 10, Windows 11, all that stuff, a lot of that's fine. But Windows 7, Windows 8.1, all of that, there's more processes involved in getting that to work. Okay, the older versions of Windows 10, Windows 10, 15.07, right? But from there, you can use this online service for activation. This is a lot better. A good example is like the COVID world. Here's something that a lot of businesses ran into with COVID. When COVID hit in March of 2020, companies were using KMS. And remember, if a machine is unable to communicate, a machine will communicate with KMS every 7 days, and it'll get reactivated. Now, if it is not in contact with KMS for more than 180 days, it loses activation. So you have a lot of people that took laptops and stuff like that home, and they were at home for months, and then all of a sudden they lost their activation because they were out of connection with that KMS service. With this newer way of doing things, the subscription-based activation, your subscription is tied to your what's called Azure Active Directory account. So every user in your environment in the world has an Azure Active Directory account. Or if you're in a Microsoft domain and you hybrid join your Microsoft domain and tie it in that way, a license can basically be associated with every user, and that license at that point will work with that device that they are logging onto, so that user can have, they can utilize 5 devices and be activated for using things like Office and things like that. And so this works out really, really well. It makes it where the activation happens online, happens over the internet, the machine can be anywhere to get activated. All right, now I want to show you something here. If I want to look and see, I have to make sure I have a license for this. Now, there's various ways you can get a license. One way you can get a license for Windows Enterprise E3 E5 is to have a license for Microsoft 365 E3 or E5, and you pay monthly per user for that. And by doing that, you're going to get access to Windows through all of that. But you can also purchase licenses just for Windows separately without having a full Microsoft 365 subscription. In my case, I actually have Office 365 and E5, which doesn't come with Windows, so it has no subscription, so I might have to get one. So, but how can I find all that out? So how can we find out what licenses we have and what we don't if we're going to do an activation? Well, we're going to go to the portal. So I'm going to go to portal.microsoft.com. If you did not know, this is the main place where the Microsoft 365 services is going to be managed. It's going to show you what licenses you have. It'll show you who's got what license. It'll show you the subscriptions, all of that, and we can see that under billing right here. So if I go right here, I can click on more products, okay, and it's going to show you what products I have now. If you're doing this stuff with me, I want you to know you may not have all the same stuff I do, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. All right. Depending on what you did, you may have Office 365 E5, and you may have Enterprise Ability plus Security E5, whatever. Okay. This gives you all the Office products. This gives you some security features, but unfortunately, none of that gives me a license for Windows, for a Windows client operating system. Okay. So what I can actually do is I can go right here where it says Purchase Services. All right. And I can click on some of these various services. Like I can look at Microsoft 365. Services here. I can scroll down and see what's available. So I got a business premium on. And all of that. You can even compare these, by the way, which is neat. You can click the comparison. Now let's scroll down and let's find, let's look at, let's find Microsoft 365. Stay with feature for just a second. All right, there it is. Microsoft 365 E5. Let's do monthly. All right, so let's compare those two together. All right, we can see that so we've got Microsoft 365 Business Premium here. We've got 5 here, so we're going to scroll down. We can see the various features that I'm going to get with the 5 that I'm not going to get with Business Premium. Okay, so if we look through here, all right, so take a look. You get this subscription here, Windows-based subscription. So Windows client-based subscription, essentially. And keep in mind that these the subscription that you get here is supported applies to Windows 10 and Windows 11, regardless of what it may say on the screen there. This decision now we can see the E5. Let's do monthly. All right, so let's compare those two together. All right, we can see that so we've got Microsoft 365 Business Premium here. We've got 5 here, so we're going to scroll down. We can see the various features that I'm going to get with the 5 that I'm not going to get with Business Premium. Okay. So if we look through here, all right, so take a look. You get this subscription here, Windows-based subscription. So Windows client-based subscription, essentially. But keep in mind that the subscription that you get here is supported applies to Windows 10 and Windows 11, regardless of what it may say on the screen there. You're looking at this, but comparison. Here we go. Let's go back over here. All right. If we look at our operating system, so we get with E5, we get all of these capabilities, all of these features here that are available to you. All right. So as far as licensing goes, you're going to get all of this. Now there's also an E3. You can look at E3 as well. But here's what I want to do. I'm going to go back over to purchase services. Now, in your case, you can probably, a lot of times when you click on these, on the time of year, you can click details on these, and they'll do a free trial. You have to start a free trial. So one option that you can go with here is you can say start a free trial if you want on these, and just got to make sure that you cancel it before the billing period. So you can do that. If you do that, you'll automatically get a Windows subscription. In my case, though, I'm going to go over here to where it says Windows. I'm going to turn off the Microsoft 365 and look at Windows. And right here, month to month, you can do Windows 10, 11, Enterprise E3, or for a year, pay it a year, or it's roughly $10 per user per month if I do this 10, 11. So I'm going to click that one. And I am going to activate this. I'm actually going to pay for this. Now, again, in your case, if you want to do this with me, you can. You can pay the $10 for whatever it costs, or you can go back and do the Microsoft 365 subscription just for a month for free, and just make sure you cancel it. You cancel licenses and stuff by going over this area here. But in my case, I'm going to pay for it. Now, I also want to tell you that whether you activate or not, you can still do the value of pretty much everything in this course, just about that I'm going to do. So if you're really nervous and you don't want to pay any money and all that, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't stress it. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to purchase it. I'm not going to show that because it's going to show some of my personal information. So I'm going to pause this recording while I do that. All right. Real quick, everybody, I forgot to mention that the version of Windows that I demonstrated earlier with setting up like a Windows 11 virtual machine, I used an evaluated copy, the evaluation copy of Windows 11, and you probably did too. You did that process. So unfortunately, the subscription-based activation won't work because it's an evaluation copy. So it can't be an evaluation copy of Windows when you go through this process. So unfortunately, I'm still going to demonstrate the whole process, but at the end of it, you won't see it get activated just because it's an evaluation copy. Now, if you've got a legitimate, you've gone through the motions of setting up and getting a legitimate copy of Windows, it's not just an evaluation copy, then this will work. And you can feel free if you want to get a license and subscription or set up a free trial, like I was just mentioning, you can do that and you will see it get activated. But it's not a big deal. This is not a process that I say you have to go through yourself. Just understanding these concepts is really all you need. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so as you can see, it now says that you're all set. We're just going to place that over. It asks me if I would like to assign licensing users. So I'm going to go over here, and this is just under active users. Now keep in mind, you may not have all the same users that I have. Keep in mind that I taught a lot of different courses, and I use this subscription for that to teach these various courses. So you may see users here. If you're doing a lot of this with me, we don't have any users. That's not a big deal. But I have a user that is my JC at examlinepractice.com. That's my main user that I'm going to be doing my demonstrations and stuff with. So I'm going to use that user here. Let's just look here. JC at example. So there's John Christopher. Click on that. And from there, go here to licenses and apps. And I am going to assign this license right here to that user. Okay. So save changes. And there you go. So we've done it. Now, I do want to warn you that even though I'm going to kind of continue and show you the process here of getting machine activated, just to do want to warn you, sometimes you have to wait about an hour to activate it, enable a subscription like this before it's fully functional. So sometimes you might run into an error, but so I just kind of like to warn you not to jump the gun on this. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer. Okay. So now what I want to do, let's jump into our operating system and see where we can go from here. So here I am on my Windows client machine, and my NYCCL 11 client machine that I've created as a virtual machine, and I was going to hit start. Oh, and notice right here it's telling you that I have a license only valid for the next 21 days. I've had this virtual machine up and running for a while, so it's running out of time as far as activation goes. And I just logged on as administrator. I'm going to click start, and we'll go right here to settings. All right, now I'm just going to search for the word work, and you're going to see an option that says access work or school. So we're going to click that, and you can see I'm joined to a Microsoft domain called examlabpractice.com. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to join it to Azure Active Directory, which will allow licenses and all that. So I'm going to click connect. All right, put in my email address here, examlabpractice.com. Okay, click next. And put my password in. Did I do that right? All right, it's now registering to my company, all right, or to my Azure environment, which is also a Microsoft 365 environment. And so this machine will now officially be linked. Okay, now as always, you do want to be advised. Your exam lab practice.com. Okay, click next, and see where we go from here. So here I am on mom. I do want to warn you that even though I'm going to kind of continue and show you the process here of getting the machine activated, just to do want to warn you, sometimes you have to wait about an hour to activate a subscription like this before it's fully functional. So sometimes you might run into an error, but so I just kind of like to warn you not to jump the gun on this. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer. Okay. So now what I want to do, let's jump into our operating system and see where we can go from here. So here I am on my Windows client machine, and I am my CCL 11 client machine that I've created as a virtual machine, and I'm just going to hit start. Oh, and notice right here it's telling you that I have a license only valid for the next 21 days. I've had this virtual machine up and running for a while, so it's running out of time as far as over to settings, examlabpractice.com. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to join into Azure Active Directory, which will allow licenses and all that to kick in. So we're going to click connect. All right, put in my email address here, examlabpractice.com. Okay, click next. And put my password in. Did that right? All right, it's now registering to my company. All right, or to my Azure environment, which is also my Microsoft 365 environment. And so this machine will now officially be linked. Okay, now as always, we do want to be advised that this can take some time before everything kicks in. It doesn't always happen. Immediately, like light sometimes, all right? So you do kind of have to give this some time. Now, the sad thing about all of this is that the version of Windows 11 that I've set up in my virtual machine is just a trial. It's an evaluation edition, so I can't really utilize this license on the evaluation edition. But I wanted to go through this whole process to show you how it would be done. So when you're doing this in the real world, you've basically seen the process. The user can sign on. At that point, once you've authenticated and linked with Azure AD, then you go back to activation. It should say that it's activated, and the activation state is good. In my case, it is still going to keep saying that my license is activated. businesses evaluation. Okay, but that is how you can go through that process of, users. Each user can be given a license. At that point, they can have that license linked to that user for their device, and you can even see what devices the user has linked to them by going back into that report.microsoft.com. If you look at the users, click on the user devices that are associated with it, and see what's activated. Okay. Now, I'm not getting into the details in this video, but one question that might be on your mind is, you saw me go through the process of joining Windows 11, in this case, into Azure Active Directory by going to Access Workers Tool. So you may say, well, how long to do that? Could you imagine having to do that on everybody's machine? That's a lot of work, right? Well, I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm not getting into the details again in this video, but you can actually automate the process of machines joining Azure Active Directory. If you're in a hybrid environment, you can use GPOs, policy objects, to just have computers automatically join. You can also use provisioning packages to have them automatically join. And if you're using Intune Autopilot, you can have them automatically join that way, or if you're going to be using Config Manager. So there's multiple ways to have devices that to make them just automatically join to Azure AD and make all this magically happen. What I showed you was the manual way of joining a computer to Azure Active Directory. But just so you know, there are multiple ways of doing that. And I can essentially use any of these various ways if I wanted to do that. In fact, if you go out to Bing or you go out to Google, and again, you're going to learn more about this stuff, but I just want to show you, if I want to auto join Windows to Azure AD, if you go quick search on that, you're going to see there are lots of articles that basically walk you through the various ways that you do this, okay? But again, we're going to learn more as we get deeper. But the point of this video is to help you understand the idea of subscription-based activation, and hopefully that you achieve that. Is the user's data and profile can be stored in a central place. So it doesn't matter which of these virtual machines you get access to, because your storage is somewhere else. So it links your storage to that. So what's great about this is it can scale really, really well. In other words, right now, we've got 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 11 machines. If we needed more users, we could have that scale out to 20 machines or 30. With a host pool, you essentially pay for what you're using. So if you were looking to do something like this on a larger scale, then Azure Virtual Desktop is going to be a better solution. Now, if you're talking about you're a small business, you've got a couple of graphics artists that, and I'm using graphics artists because that's definitely a field where you have apps that require a lot of memory and processing power in a lot of cases. Then I would say Windows 365 is going to be a better solution. But if you're in a business environment where you're working on a larger scale, where you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 machines, 100 machines, 1,000, whatever, that you're wanting to utilize a virtual copy of Windows, then Azure Virtual Desktop is going to be the better solution. Okay? So hopefully that now clears that up for you. You understand the benefits here. Obviously, I'm not diving into configuring into this. The point of this video is just kind of compare and help you understand the difference between using Windows 365 versus the Azure Virtual Desktop features that Microsoft offers. The thing is, that happens with Udemy is that once you complete an assignment, they don't really make it easy for you to get right back in and do the assignment again, which means if you want to redo the simulations, they don't make that easy on you, okay? So I want to talk about how you can do that very easily just by doing the following steps. Now, the first thing I want to say is the assignment that's currently on the screen may not even be the course you're taking. I am making this video that's going to be in all of my courses. So don't worry if you don't see an assignment with the same name as what we've got here. My point is, once you complete an assignment, if you try to return to the assignment, you're going to see a screen similar to this one. Okay? So if you complete an assignment, you may try to go back to it, and you'll see a screen similar to this. You'll notice there's no way to restart the assignment, right? But you can do it very easily. Here's how. Look in the lower left-hand corner, and it says Go to Summary. I'm going to click that. Now I'm going to click Back to Assignment. This is on the lower right. And then I'm going to go up to the upper left where it says Instructions. And there you go. I've now got the instructions for doing the assignment. Again, there is a little simulation link that I can click, and I can always go back to this anytime I want. So again, all I got to do to return and redo an assignment to get access to a simulation is click Go to Summary, Back to Assignment, click Instructions, and there you go. Anytime you complete an assignment, you can just go back to the assignment and go through those steps and be able to find the link to the simulations. I want to spend some time now helping you understand the concept of joining devices or registering devices into Entra ID. This is also on top of the fact that we can also have hybrid environments as well. Now, if you go to Google or Bing and do a quick search on Microsoft Entra registered devices, you will find this article right here. Of course, it also leads you to Entra joint devices, hybrid joint devices, these three things here, which is really what I want to focus on in this video. I want to help you understand these concepts because obviously more about what this all is, it's important to understand the definitions of things. So we'll start with the idea of a registered device. Now, the thing you want to remember about a registered device is this is a BYOD scenario. Now, if I can't get you to remember anything else I say about this, it's going to be that key acronym, BYOD. Bring your own device. So imagine that you have a employee that brings their own laptop to the office, and then occasionally when they use that personal laptop at home, they use it on the road, they might bring it to the office, or it could be a tablet, this could be a smartphone, this is a personal device of some kind, okay? And the company needs to allow this person to use this device and interact with resources that the company is providing in Microsoft Azure and the help of Entra ID, okay? So that is the idea. They will be registering their device, but ultimately they still have control over the device. The only difference is the company can put restrictions in place that limits the things that the person can do when they're interacting with the company resources. So it's not going to really put any restrictions in terms of what they can do personally with the device, but as far as things that involve the company's data, the company's resources, there will be restrictions. So the definition here, they tell you registered Microsoft Entra ID without requiring organizational account, sign in. So when they sign into the device, they can sign in with their personal credentials, okay? They don't have to have a business account or any of that that logs them on the device. Now, when they join Entra ID, they will still need an Entra ID account to join. But when they're logging on the device, they can have a personal account. Technically, it can be a local account, even though Microsoft is trying their best to stop you from using local computer accounts. But it's a personal account.
So if you want to join our Windows 11 machines in the domain, the first thing we need to do is look at our domain control. All right, there. All right. So here it is, 192.168.1.2e. IP address, our domain controller here, and which is NYCDC1. And we're just going to check the
IP up here to Windows 11. All right, we're going to go Start. We're going to go to our settings, Ethernet. All right, from there, Internet, go to Network and Internet, Ethernet. All right, from there, right here where it says DNS Server Assignment, we're going to click Edit. Change this to manual IPv4. All right, and this is where, of course, we're going to put in our address, right? The address is 192.168.1.213. So we're going to put that in, okay? All right, from there, we're going to click Save. And we've now put in our DNS information manually, so that's good to go. The next thing I want to do is go over here to System. All right, and we're going to scroll down to where it says About. All right, and we're going to rename the computer because the computer is currently not named what I want it to be. I want to call it NYC CL11. We're going to click Next, and it's going to want to restart. So we're going to go ahead and let it restart. I'll pause the video while it's restarting. Okay, so once the reboot has happened, I'm ready to log on. Keep in mind, you might have to tell it to do Control Delete. You can do that by going up to the menu button, the Action button at the top of Hyper-V, clicking the Control Delete. You can also do Control Alt N, but don't actually hit Control Delete on your keyboard or it won't work. Okay, so you got to use the menu to take care of that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log on. Something else that I want to do is disable IPv6 because we don't need IPv6. Sometimes that causes some problems depending on what kind of internet connection you have. And the majority of the cloud stuff and everything in Microsoft that they're using is all going to be full IPv4. So I am going to disable that. It does have problems with some students' ISPs. So to do that, what I'm going to do is click Start. Type the word Control. All right, and then we have an option, Control Panel. Now, if your screen might look like this, or this when you first go in there. I like to go to Category View, go to Large Icons. Okay, then I'm going to go to Network and Internet, or Network and Sharing Center. Then I'm going to go to Change Adapter Settings, and then I'm going to double click on the adapter and go to Properties. And then I'm just going to disable IPv6 altogether. Okay, so we're going to do that, hit Close. All right. At that point, we should be able to go and I'm just going to right click Start. You go to Run, type CMD, then I'm going to type ipconfig, and there you can see that I've got my IP config in there. Go /all, I can see that my DNS is 192.168.1.213, which should be my DNS right, 213. 192.168.1.213. I should be able to ping that 192.168.1.213. And I can. So I'm now ready to tell it to join the domain. So we're going to click Start. We're going to go to Settings. I'm here on System, and I'm going to scroll down. I'm now ready to set up. I'll pause the recording on it. So I'll put that in sign in. Which there's not a lot of anything. Password. Just going to choose. Also checking for updates. And checking for updates just lasted a couple of minutes. I did pause my recording while that happened, and another reboot occurred. So where it's asking if I want to connect to work or school, all that. For now, I'm just going to choose the sign in options. And I'm choosing domain join instead. Alright, so regardless of whether or not I plan to join the domain, this is the option I go with, and then it says enter your name. I'm just going to put John Christopher. In my case, click next. I'm going to give it a password that I'm going to remember. Very this privacy setting. Finally, after the updates get installed, I get my login screen. And I'm everything on. Let's just click on About. started.
Domains, and you can't have them mixed up. All right. Windows it. Pull down and I'm going to click About. Domain or work group. Okay, right here I'm going to click Change Domain, and my domain is exam. And practice/administrator. This is going to let me log on to the domain with the administrator account. Gives me admin rights. And there you go. You're officially joined to the domain, and you have access to the domain resources using this machine.
That said, you're ready to move into this next video. Again, just don't forget, there is not anything I can do to help if you cannot get your account set up because you live in a certain area or something like that. I have no control over this part of this course. You have got to set things up or use a company's subscription or something in order to get things running. Unfortunately, emailing me, if you email me, if you message me, you're just going to hear me basically tell you the same thing. I have no control over it. So just be advised on that. Some people have been able to use VPNs and all that. I can't really help with any of that. So again, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to message me. If you have problems setting the account up, you may end up having to get yourself an account somehow. But I hope this all makes sense, and now you're ready to move on to this next video. It's not their business account that logs them onto the computer. So in other words, when you log onto this computer with this device, let's say it's a Windows client operating system. You could have the logon name could be anything you want that logs you in, and when you get to your desktop, right? You're on your desktop. At that point, it can be registered to the company using the user's intra ID. And their company can use that intra ID to log onto the device. It's just going to use that connection with that intra ID to allow that device to interact with company resources. So primary audience, they tell you it's applicable to all users. Following criteria: bring your device to both devices. Device ownership is the user. It could be the organizations, but that's not normally the route. Using registered devices is not normally the route for an organization. Organization is the joint devices. We'll see why here in a second. The operating systems, Windows 10 or newer. Here's Mac OS 10.15, iOS 15 and above, Android, Linux. I mentioned Ubuntu, Red Hat. Provisioning, so how does this get set up? Windows 10 or newer settings. Go into the settings app and you configure it there. iOS, and you download the company portal app or Microsoft Authenticator app to register it. You can use Mac OS company portal app. Linux, Intune agent, and with device sign-in options, as far as the user signing in, they can use their local credentials, a standard password, Windows Hello, PIN number, biometrics, any of those personal things they normally use. Device management can use MDM, mobile device management, which is Microsoft Intune, and that's Microsoft's main MDM. It's not the only mobile device management platform out there. And then it also supports MAM, mobile application management. Remember, the company is kind of limited as far as the restrictions they can place on the device because this is somebody's personal device. It's only going to put restrictions in place on the person that user interacting with the data. Then you've got key capabilities, SSOs, of course, SSO person sign on the cloud resources, credentials in, conditional access to restrict what they can and can't do. This is using you can also have app protection policies with restrictions on the apps that are interacting with company data. So all of that. So that is the idea of a registered device. So let's talk now about the intra-join device. All right. So here we are, Microsoft intra-join devices. All right. So the definition here: any organization can deploy Microsoft intra-join device, no matter the size or industry. Microsoft intra-join works in hybrid environments and enable access to both cloud and on-premise resources. So the idea here, definition is join only to Microsoft Entra ID requiring organizational account sign in. Okay, so the big difference here is that when somebody walks up to the device, they're not going to be logging on with a personal account of any kind. They are going to have it. They're going to log in using their Intra ID account. So the company generally would own this device. This would not be a personal device. The company would own it, and they're providing it to the user. So this is a laptop or a desktop, or it could be a mobile device, phone, tablet, whatever they are using. They're actually authenticated with Intra ID. It's not one of those things where they're logging on their personal account and they just got a registered link, like a registered device. So ownership is the organization, operating systems is supported, all Windows 11 and Windows 10 devices except home. Okay. So one thing that's kind of interesting about if you go back and look at registered devices, you don't see that, right? So Windows 10 and newer doesn't mention home. So a home device can be registered, but as far as a joint device goes, it's got to be a Pro edition or an Education edition or an Enterprise edition. It cannot be a home edition. Okay. Servers can also, they mentioned Windows Server 2019 and newer versions you can run in Azure. Server port isn't supported. Provisioning, this can be done by self-service, meaning when you install the machine, you can choose to, when you install the machine, if you choose to sign in with an Intra ID account, then it will automatically join the device. Another way is to, and that of course is with out-of-box experience or through the settings. You can do it through settings as well. You add a new account to Windows Intra ID account to the computer, and you can join it that way as well. You can do bulk enrollment with provisioning or autopilot. There's various ways that you can do that, which I'm not diving into those right now. So device sign-in options, organizational accounts using passwordless, Windows Hello for Business, FIDO keys, all of that. Device management using VM, Microsoft Intune is Microsoft VM, of course SSO, all. Okay. So the main benefit here, though, is that we get more control of the device. We can lock the device down as tight as we want, whereas with registered devices, you can't do that. Because a registered device is their personal device. Okay, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a personal device. Right? So that's the big difference. All right. Then you've got hybrid join. So hybrid join device, that means you've got an on-premise domain. Okay, like an on-premises Active Directory domain. You got Intra ID in the cloud. With that, you have the ability to synchronize your cloud. So join to on-premise Microsoft Windows Server Active Directory and Microsoft Intra ID is suitable for higher organizations with existing on-premises Microsoft Windows Server Active Directory. So looking for all organization devices and using a private organization to do that. It's kind of the same requirements as far as that as the Intra joint devices are. Right? So you see a lot of these things. But the main thing here is you've got an on-premises domain, you've got cloud, and then you've got synchronization. Mostly you've got synchronization from user accounts out of the cloud, but you can synchronize passwords and things from other tools that you can back on on-premise. All right. You just want to be able to synchronize actual user accounts now that are created in the cloud. But again, I'm diving deep into that right now. All right. Well, hopefully this gives you a better understanding now of these different routes. I will tell you that Microsoft is trying to move away from the hybrid world and go fully into Intra. You may not want to hear that, and it's hard for me to even say that because I have made a living for my family in the last 25 years pushing domains and teaching domains and Active Directory. And I absolutely love Active Directory, but Microsoft is definitely trying to move more now towards going with these methods here. Joint device, Intra joint devices, and registered devices. Just be aware of that. They are slowly trying to move away from the domain. All right. But hopefully that gives you a better understanding of how these three are utilized and what the benefits are. Now in this video, I want to show you the concept of if you were to set up a fresh new machine, it's the Windows 11 that I've got on the screen right here. If you were to set up a fresh new machine and you were going through the out-of-box experience, which is what you're seeing right here, I want to show you how this would become a join device into Intride. All right. This is not something you need to do with me right now. I'm not asking you to set up a new Windows 11 virtual machine. If you want to, just so you can do this in like Hyper-V or something, you can. But it's absolutely not something you have to do right now. Okay. I just want to show it to you so you can visualize it very easily. But you are welcome if you want to set up a new virtual machine in front of you. You can. Again, you don't need to. So here we are, looking at this little virtual machine. I just threw it together real quick. If I click yes for my location, keyboard layout, that's fine. At that point, it's going to check for updates. So we're going to let that run through. All right, and when that's done, right here, this is where the magic is. Now, in this case, it's done right here, run through. All right, and then when that's done, fine. At that location, keyboard layout, that's fine. At that point, it's going to check for updates. So we're going to let that run through. All right, and then when that's done, right here, this is where